I just want everyone to know I'm staring at a fake vagina, wishbone, and it's amazing. Go ahead, keep going.
So this is and then this one. Hold on.
What's up, guys? How is everyone today? Welcome to another episode of On Display and another hoarse Melissa Gorga. Yes, my voice is still hoarse, but I'm just learning to live with it, and I'm starting to think that it sounds sexy. But keep DMing me all of your remedies because I'm trying each and every freaking one of them. I can guarantee you that. Guys, you know how much I love these episodes, and you know my show is not always about housewives. Let me just tell you, you guys are going to love this one because today we're talking about sex. That's right. We're talking about sex and all the uncomfortable questions that you're scared to ask and you don't want to ask. And I am going to ask all the questions for you today. I'm going to get all the uncomfortable answers for you. We are going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about orgasms. We are going to talk about everything in between. So you do not want to miss this episode. Okay, so let's not take any more time. I'm going to pull her onto the show right now. I have with me one of the leading experts in sex and sexuality. She hosts the amazing podcast, Sex with Emily, that I know a ton of my listeners already listen to. And she has a new book out and it's called Smart Sex, which it's all about improving your sexual IQ. And we're going to get all into that today. Okay. This is going to be an uncomfortable yet amazing podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Dr. Emily Morse with me today. What's up, lady? Hi.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I know we tried to do this like a couple times and we've had to reschedule each of us a couple times. So I'm so happy I'm finally having my sex podcast.
Exactly. Me too. It has been a long time. I think we've had like a lot of foreplay leading up to this. You and I never met. We've been trying to make it happen. Now we're here. It's been a great buildup.
Yes. Oh, there you go. See, you just dive right in. I see how that goes. Okay, great. First, I want to ask you, tell me a little bit about your background. Like, how does one just say like, hey, I'm a sex expert? Like, how does this happen?
Okay. It's such a good question. So it happened because, Melissa, I was the opposite of a sex expert because I was in my mid-30s. I was having sex. I was, a sexual person, pretty open sexually, but I found that my sex was not satisfying. I wasn't having orgasms. I wasn't having a lot of pleasure. But the way I grew up, and I came to find out that many people grew up this way, was I didn't have a lot of sex education. I thought that great sex meant that my male partners, were having a good time and they had an orgasm. And as a result of that, like I thought I was broken because I wasn't having orgasms during penetration. I wasn't having pleasure. So I really thought something was wrong with me. So I set out, before I became a doctor of sexuality, I just set out to understand what it meant to have great sex and thinking that like, I like that would be a great thing to figure out so I could be a great lover to my partners. And then once I started asking the questions just almost 20 years ago, I realized that a lot of people were in the same boat, especially women. They were like, I'm faking orgasms too, or it doesn't feel as good to me, or I'm having pain and I don't know what makes great sex. So that was when my path started. I thought I really want to figure out how to have great sex, what that actually means. And so I started a podcast, 18 years ago. And went back to grad school, got my doctorate in human sexuality, and I've been doing it ever since. So that's the journey. The journey went from bad sex to wanting to have great sex. And here we are today.
Well, I mean, do you always find it pretty easy helping others? I mean, like it's just a pretty private conversation that people get like, they feel like they're shy when you're going to talk about sex or sexuality. Like, do you find it easy to help others or is this a difficult thing to do?
Oh, I really find it, I love what I do. I love my job and I've been doing it for so long that it's really, by the time people get to me with their question and they're able to get through the shame, because what keeps us from talking about, like the reason why it is awkward and uncomfortable is because most of us grew up in environments where there's a lot of shame around it. People told us not to talk about it. If we have to talk about sex, it means that it's not great sex. Like, it means it's going to ruin it. So when they get to me and they have questions, I'm so grateful and so honored to be able to help people. So, and I pretty much have the answers. I feel like after this much time, I can answer any sex question. So knowing that I can be of service to people is really one of my great joys. And I know that I can meet people where they're at, right? Like, I know that if people are, I know that it's hard. So
Right.
a lot of what I do actually is getting people to feel comfortable talking about it. Like, being like, it's okay. I got you. It's private. And then once they get over that, people are pretty happy we had the chat.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about it today because I have so many questions for you. Obviously, you know who I'm married to, right? So
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions, and it's so funny. Even like some of the things you were just saying, I do know a lot of women and a lot of people who would explain it as painful. They don't enjoy it as much as the man does, and the whole orgasm thing, and why isn't it working for me? And I want to get into all of the nitty gritty with you because I am curious, and it's like an uncomfortable subject, but I feel like all my listeners out there want to hear this from you. So we're going to ask you, but first I need to tell everyone you were also, you were like a guest host, right? With Dr. Drew for Loveline. How was that? How was it working with him?
I love Dr. Drew. He's become like a very dear friend of mine. But when I started my podcast, so get this, like, I started my podcast in 2005. There was nobody but Dr. Ruth, as you mentioned, and then Loveline with Dr. Drew, which honestly, Melissa, it was on for 38 years. Loveline. He started in the 80s. And so I was such a fan of Drew and and Loveline, Dr. Drew. And so I moved to Los Angeles like 10 years ago, and they were like looking for a female co-host. And I went in and I met him, and we really hit it off. So yeah, it was such an honor to work with him. And now literally I consider he and his wife are like, we travel together. Like, they're very good friends of mine. So working with Drew was truly an honor, and I learned a lot from him. Yeah, he's fantastic. So yeah, it's OG. Like, it was like the original,
Yes.
Loveline.
Yes. And he's huge. Like, everybody knows Dr. Drew, Loveline, all of that. That's like that's so great for you. I mean, did you have anybody ever call in? What was like the most shocking guest call in that you've had while you were co-hosting? Anything crazy?
Let's see. Anything crazy? Oh, what's so funny? People ask me that. There's nothing that, okay, so I have to tell you this. There's nothing that surprises me for it. There's nothing sexually where I'm like, I can't believe you did that, or I can't believe that nothing's that shocking. But I'll never forget the guy. There was a guy who said that he was in a relationship. I'm trying to remember the story. He was feeling, it's not even about sex, but he was told his girlfriend that he was a doctor. And he said that he really loved her so much. And so he dressed up every day for like 3 years of their relationship in scrubs every morning, and left the house in scrubs, and like came home, and he like had a totally different job. I think he was like working at a grocery store or something that was like so random.
Wow.
And then he would have to put the scrubs on again. And I don't know why that stuck to me, because it stuck to this point that we can't be ourselves in so many ways. I'm like, what that took for you really to like not feel good about who you are and what you do in the world. And so
well, that's a real dirty John move, isn't it?
That's a dirty John move.
It's a little manipulation. I don't know how much that has to do with sex, right?
It doesn't. Well, nothing freaks me out. Okay, here's another shot. Here's one that maybe is more of a sexual thing. This was a Loveline, but this was during the pandemic. And I used to have a show on Sirius XM for many years, a call-in show. So people would call in, and I still do Sex with Emily as a call-in. So people can call into Sex with Emily, do the podcast. But this guy called in, and this is meanwhile the pandemic, right? When we're told, like, don't, if you have sex with a stranger, wear a mask, don't even have sex. There's all these things going on. And this guy was like, I think he was living in the South. He was living like in Arkansas. And he's like, my wife and I, we've really wanted to expand, and we've met these people online. And now we're having we're not swinging tonight, but we're having like a foursome. Like, they met 3 other couples that were coming over, and there was like 8 of them, and they were having like a big sex party at his house. And he like wanted to know what they should do and how they should play. I'm like, it's a global pandemic. This is not the time. But anyway, they were like having, I don't know, they were having like a big sex party. Like, I guess that when people feel like the world's ending, they're going to have a sex party. But I did find during the pandemic that people were really much more open. The great thing is like for the sex business, people were much more open. People, if they didn't get divorced during the pandemic, they decided that it was a time to work on their relationship and their sex life. And they decided that because many people, as you probably know, Melissa, aren't having great sex. People are together for 10 years, 50 years. And this is the thing about my show. I think that people feel that for many times people call in and they say, I've never told anyone this, Emily, but I'm going to tell you this. My partner and I have been together and we've never talked about sex. And it's so common. Most people haven't talked about sex in a healthy way. Either they're like, are we going to have sex? Or did we have sex? Or when should we have sex? But they don't talk about actually what feels good and pleasure. And so a lot of my listeners are like talking about it for the very first time with me because they want to know, what can I do to please my partner? How do we have sex more often? How do we keep it interesting? And I think during the pandemic, even more so, people thought either we're going to get divorced or we're going to work on our sex life and make it even better. That's what I found.
I noticed that with just a couple friends of mine too. First of all, everybody wanted to work out and have sex. That's what it was all about.
Exactly.
Work out and have sex all day. It's like,
right.
I think the pandemic was great for a lot of people actually.
Right. Exactly. Or make bread, but right.
Right. Yes. And you're right. Or they were divorced like the second they were able to go back to a bar or whatever it was. Right. What about being compared to like the Dr. Ruth of the new generation? Do we like this title? I mean, that's pretty incredible title, right? To be compared to.
Yeah. No, I have to say that the reason why I like it is, well, Dr. Ruth is like 90 right now.
Right.
And she's still I have, but she's still talking about sex. But the reason why I appreciate that is because if you think about it, she was the first person that I ever heard talk about sex. And she was like the only one. And she was such a pioneer. And she made sex, more mainstream, made sex easier to talk about. So the fact that there's really nobody else, maybe Dr. Drew or maybe, the Kinseys. I mean, it's in the late 50s, Alfred Kinsey started the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University. But before that, nobody ever really talked about it. So to be compared to Dr. Ruth and to be, people are comfortable with that and they know who she is, I'm down. I'm okay with that.
It's definitely time to start thinking about rejuvenating your skin from the effects of the sun-filled days and the refreshing relief of air conditioning, all of which can take a toll on our skin. Osea's Andaria Exfoliate and Glow Duo is just the thing to rehab sun-soaked skin and prep it all for fall. This dynamic duo features two of Osea's best-selling products infused with nourishing seaweed and designed to elevate your fall body care. Guys, I've tried the Andaria Exfoliate and Glow Duo, and it's amazing. You can seriously feel how natural these ingredients are as they get absorbed into my skin. They really feel so soft, nourished, and my skin just feels replenished. You need to save and glow with the Andaria Exfoliate and Glow Duo, the perfect way to try two of Osea's best-selling products at an incredible value. Save 16% on the Andaria Exfoliate and Glow Duo. Plus, with our promo code, you'll get an additional 10% off. Prep your skin for fall with clean vegan skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners. You can get 10% off your first order site-wide with code DISPLAY at OseaMalibu.com. Head to OSEAMalibu.com and use code DISPLAY for 10% off. You hear that sound? It's the sound of a sale you're missing out on because you're not selling on Shopify. And what does it sound like with Shopify? Much better. Anyone who knows me knows I go crazy when my phone makes that sound. It makes me so excited. I sell everything from Envy on Shopify, and that little cha-ching makes my whole entire day. Start selling with Shopify today. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. All right. So whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. Plus, once you start selling, Shopify makes getting paid simple by instantly accepting every type of payment. Guys, I use Shopify for all of my sales with Envy, and I can tell you this, all of my customers love it. It's super easy, hassle-free. You really can't go wrong. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success in every step of the way. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Melissa, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Melissa to take your business to the next level today. Shopify.com/Melissa. Cha-ching. All right. I want to talk about sex a little bit. I mean, this may be like a very basic question, but I think we all want to hear, we want to hear from someone with your expertise and your credentials. So, and this is like a conversation I feel like I have all the time with my girlfriends and just with couples in general. But let me just ask you this, like, how important is sex? And I know you're probably going to say it's more important in certain situations, right? So if you're coupled opposed to when you're single, just how important is sex?
No, it's not. Listen, there are no silly questions and there's no common questions when it comes to sex, because I want to remind you that literally no one talks about it. So thank you for having me on your show, because it is really brave. It still is a very taboo subject. So no, yes. people don't that's a completely understanding question that we just want to know about, how important is sex? Why does sex matter? So here's the thing about it is that if you're not having sex with your partner, well, then you're roommates, right? So in a way, we need sex that shows that you are connected. There's intimacy, there's connection. It's the hormones that connect you. And that's the thing that we need, right? The feel good hormones that spark whenever you have sex, like the oxytocin and the dopamine and the serotonin. And usually there's one person in the relationship after time that wants less sex than the other partner. And in every relationship, there's a high desire partner and a low desire partner. And so I want everyone to, hopefully that makes everyone just breathe a sigh of relief if there's nothing wrong with them, because usually the two high desire partners and the two low desire partners don't meet up. They don't match up. So there's always going to be this disparity. Why don't they? They don't, because it's just like what opposites attract, because it's because you need somebody to be desiring and you need somebody to be the leader and somebody follows, and that's what creates sexual attraction. The polarity of attraction is that there's somebody leading, somebody following. So if you both want at the same time, it just doesn't create that spark and that energy. You need some kind of
somebody needs to be asking for it, wanting it, going always for the other person. Mm-hmm. Joe would say I'm a tiger in the woods and I see a bunny hopping and I just need to go for the bunny. These are the kind of things that my husband would say. But I agree with you. It is better when someone is desiring another person a little bit more. Is that always a better scenario?
Yeah, no, that's just the scenario that happens. There's someone who's going to be leading, initiating, and somebody's following. Because if you're both initiating, nothing can happen there. So it's the polarity of magnets too, a plus and a minus. You need someone, and in my book, Smart Sex, I talk about energy and attraction, the positive and the negative force. So yeah, there's always somebody who wants it. And so, but it is important in relationships. So what I often hear though from people is that there's usually one person that's oh, I don't need it. We've had enough sex. We've been together long enough, because they just don't have that same desire they had at the beginning, because after you're with someone for a while, it takes more of an effort. So what I really try to do is there's a few things I try to do that make sex a little bit easier to understand for people. The one thing is I want to normalize it, especially for women, to understand that our desire isn't like men's. This is where we're different, okay? So if your partner, so Joe's attracted, when he's turned on, right? Because he gets an erection. You can see it. It's external. You're oh, I guess you want to have sex right now. This happens when we're with a man. It's external. They spontaneously get aroused. He sees you, he's ready. For women, we typically get aroused. It's something called responsive desire. So men are spontaneous. They spontaneously get aroused. We need other things. So what I try to do is help women understand, what do they actually need to be turned on? What has to happen? How do we work backwards from that? Think about, for example, do you need to make sure the house is clean? Do you need to have a really hot conversation first? Do you need to have worked out that day? Do you have to have felt like that maybe you guys have a great conversation together, or you share a certain activity, maybe you work out together. So I have this thing called the desire inventory, where people can figure out, if they go to sexwithemily.com or they read the book Smart Sex, you can figure out, what do I actually, so they can kind of hack it. What do I need to be aroused? We might need dirty talk, foreplay, There's all of these things need to lead up to when most women don't spontaneously get ready for sex, get turned on. So that also helps us feel pretty good to say like, oh, I'm not broken. I need to understand what needs to happen. So I will be ready for sex.
Right. Like, for instance, Joe could be doing nothing and out of nowhere, like I'm literally pushing the coffee machine on and he just decides like it's time to have sex out of nowhere. And I'm looking at him dead in the eyes, like, absolutely not. Like, what? There is no part of me right now that wants to walk up the stairs and have sex. Like, where did this even come from? But it's just so spontaneous and so crazy. And it almost makes me say sometimes like, do I need to take like a special pill that's going to make me horny more? Like, what's happening here? And why does he always in the mood? Like, it can be the stupidest thing. And he's like, let's go upstairs. And I'm like, what? Like, we're in the middle of having a conversation. And for me, and I don't know about this with all women, but like, I get turned on by different things. Like, if you look really good in an outfit, if I love the clothing turns me on. If I like what you're wearing, if you come down, if you smell really good, if your cologne, like if I got a whiff of your cologne, that could work for me. Like things like that.
Wait, Melissa, I love this. So do you tell him that? Like, does he know what it is? Like, if he knew, he'll be wearing suits though to breakfast is the problem or whatever it is. He'll be like showing up with cologne at night, every night. You're like, babe, not every day. But see, this is good, Melissa, that you know this. This is what I want women to think about it for a minute because most of them are like, I don't even know what it is. So even just to know it's those few things, or it could also be like, babe, I'll never be in the mood over coffee. Right. Just saying like, right. And I tell my partner, like, I'm like to my boyfriend, I'm like, I'm not going to be like a Tuesday night at 11. I'm already exhausted. I'm sleeping. Yes. Don't try. So why I tell couples, like, you got to figure it out together. And maybe, like Saturday mornings, the kids are at activities where we have a babysitter, or like find out what times a day, what times a week work. Because otherwise, if couples want it at different times and the sex never happens, this is why we need couples to schedule sex and to say like Saturday night is the night or Saturday that we have sex. Because then first off, one partner's not feeling rejected all week. They're not like, oh, I'm going to try on Tuesday. I'm going to try on Wednesday because they know it's happening Saturday. So then you don't have to like, here's Joe's going to want to have sex again. Like, cause then he doesn't feel rejected. So you just get to kind of troubleshoot it. Maybe it's 2 days a week. And then, well, if we agreed that it's going to be our date night and the kids are out, gone, or there's a babysitter, well, then you can think about, Melissa, like, okay, well, I know I want to shave. I want to wear the sexy outfit. The sex toys are charged. Like whatever it is that you need has to all be ready to go. And then you don't, because there's a lot of things that have to happen. I don't know about you, but for me, like there's a lot of things that have to be right for me to be in the mood for sex. Like
yeah. I mean, I think when you're dating, once you're married for as long as I am, I'm like, I'm not shaving my legs. None of this is happening.
Right.
I'm always pretty like, tidy. I'm always pretty on point. But let me ask you this. So you're saying you do like a schedule. It is good to make a schedule or to know like Saturday night is sex night. That's a good thing.
That's a good thing for couples overall. And most people say that is the most least sexy thing I've ever heard. Like, I don't really like that. I know. People don't want to look at their phone and be like, pick up the kids at soccer, dry cleaning, like sex, because it's on the calendar. It's not hot. But why I know it works is because for many couples, and again, I am not speaking to every couple. We're all so different. For many couples, knowing that it's set, they can look forward to it. They don't have to worry about it happening at other times. And then they can sort of plan around it and they know it's happening. And it takes pressure off of it.
The rejection part of it.
The rejection part of it, yes. That's a big one. I just got a question from my listener who was like, I literally have phobia right now around asking my partner for sex because they have rejected me so many times and now my self-confidence is down.
Right.
And so I just realized that for all these years and talking to literally millions of people, that for many couples, the notion of scheduling it and planning it, knowing when it's going to happen is actually way sexier than never having sex and having resentments build up. Because most of us believe that sex has to be spontaneous. And for a lot of couples, spontaneous sex just doesn't work because then it will never happen.
Agreed. So that's where I think it does go couple to couple and you have to figure out what works for you, right? Because if I'm out to dinner sometimes and Joe's like warning me in some which kind of way where he's like, oh, tonight, like, oh, we're going to go home tonight. Oh, it's going to happen. I'm like, I'm instantly like, no, stop giving me a warning. Like, I don't want the warning. I'm more of like oh, you tapped me at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. And so like, okay, that was fun. Like, I don't want a warning ever. And if you warn me that like, we're going to go home and have sex, now I don't feel like having sex anymore.
That's good that you know that that's you. Okay, that is you. But sometimes I totally know what you're saying about that too, because sometimes that can be annoying. You're like, now that's what I'm thinking about, and that wasn't where I was at.
Like,
I was being very present. Why did you just jump to the future? And I'm tired, and I don't know. Yeah, so I get
like
that
you
too.
just made it a job. You just told me I have to. Like I want to have sex when I want to, not when I have to. Right?
Exactly.
Like not when it's on the schedule. So, but I get what you're saying. Like if you're in a relationship where, you know, it's not happening all the time. There's lots of kids. It can't be as spontaneous to know like, all right, I'm not going to get rejected and try this all week long, but like Saturdays, she usually makes some time for me. So I'll wait for that. That I can see that giving people ease, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nuanced. I just like to give a ton of information, people, a ton of different hacks so people can figure out, but nothing's going to work for everybody. But the general problems are that couples can't quite figure out the right times and get on the same page. So that might work.
There's been times when I bet you hear a lot of this too. Couples do this thing where it's like if there was rejection once or twice, and then the partner who's asking for it kind of gets annoyed and literally just stops asking, like even though it's killing them inside, and they refuse. And like the partner who could care less about sex or whatever, usually the girl, is kind of just like, okay, good, you're not bothering me, I'm not going to bother you either. And then they get into this vicious cycle where it makes it so odd and weird the first time you do it because you let too much time pass, right? And too much time go by. And now everyone's like, well, with their egos, well, I'm not going to make the first move. Well, I'm not going to. And it just turns into a real freaking disaster.
It's a disaster.
I mean, I'm sure you hear this a lot.
All
right?
the time. Yeah. It is not a good strategy to kind of just wait and see what happens, because then you'll be waiting a long time. Many couples are like, well, I was going to just see if they'll ever notice that we didn't have sex. And that doesn't work. This is why, I mean, Melissa, I talk a lot about tips and tricks, and we can get into all that stuff, but mostly people need to know how to communicate about sex, because playing games around your sexuality, usually both people are going to lose.
Of course.
So if you talk about what's going on with our sex life, what turns you on, what might feel good to us, like let's actually both have a growth mindset around our sex life. It's like couples who decide to get healthy together, work out together. They plan their menus, they plan their workout schedules. Maybe they plan we plan everything as a couple, our vacations, but we don't talk about sex because we leave sex to being the spontaneously magical thing. And like for like years and years, it just doesn't work that way. That's not sex. Sex takes some planning. It takes some understanding of when, what's going on and what's going to turn us on. So yeah, it's really not magic. It's just something that matters and it's important, but it can still be hot. And talking about sex makes it even hotter.
Okay, guys, I have to tell you about Angie. It's your home for everything home, and they've made it easier than ever to connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done right. You know, like redoing something in your front yard because your husband doesn't want to do it for the fifth time. Joe. Guys, I have been waiting for an app like this my whole life. You literally can find everything on there. Anyone who can fix anything from paint to electricians to landscaping, you name it, and you'll find someone to do it on this app. I think it's genius. If you own a home, you know how much work it can take, whether it's everyday maintenance and repairs or making dream projects a reality. It can just be so hard to know where to start. But now all you need to do is Angie that and find a skilled local pro who will deliver the quality and expertise you need. Angie has over 20 years of home service experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app, answer a few questions, and Angie can handle the rest from start to finish. Or they can help you compare quotes from multiple pros and connect you instantly, which means you can take care of just about any home project in just a few taps. Because when it comes to getting the most out of your home, you can do this when you Angie that. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.
Want more TMZ in your life? Then download the TMZ podcast.
The judge could say the only way they could go on TikTok is if X happens.
Wow. What if 50 years from now, lawyers are citing, West v. Kardashian for social media?
Available now on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts.
There's no recklessness there unless you assign to Alec Baldwin the obligation to have checked that round.
Well, is the Clooney rule industry standard, right?
Clooney rule.
No, well.
Follow us today so you get the real story.
Well, that's what brings me right over to your book, okay? Because you have a new book and it's called Smart Sex: How to Boost Your Sex IQ and Own Your Pleasure, which I love. Okay, so first of all, let me just ask you this. What is smart sex?
Okay, so smart sex is, so this came when I was writing the book. I realized after almost 20 years of doing this that most people, when it comes to sex, want a quick fix because A, they don't talk about it. So they're just like, just tell me how to have more orgasms or tell me how to turn my partner on. And so I can do that. Like I can tell anybody what toy to buy, what lube, what sex position. But at the end of the day, having smart sex is about our overall well-being. And so I came up with something called your sex IQ. We have a quiz at sexwithemily.com that you can figure out where you're at. But the good news is that this is not to make people feel like dumb. We all need to be working on our sex life, but it's holistic. There's 5 pillars of sexual intelligence, and it's not just how many partners you had, how many moves you know, how often you've had sex. But like, for example, one of the pillars is our health. If I don't work out, move my body, eat healthy, well, then I might have a blood flow problem. If I have a blood flow problem, I'm going to have fewer erections. I'm not going to have as many orgasms. If I'm not eating great foods, that's going to impact my body. So that's like one of the pillars, and people often don't make that connection. Or medications. If I am on the birth control pill or I'm taking an antidepressant, that could impact my libido. That's going to impact. Right. And again, people don't see that because again, they think sex is magic. So they're like, well, it's going to be like, no, all these things impact it. Also, like another pillars is self-acceptance. If I hate my body and I'm beating myself up all day for my thighs or gaining weight and I don't want to be naked when I get naked in the bedroom with my partner, it's going to be really hard to have good sex. And so I give people these 5 pillars to look at. These are all the things that people kind of figure out themselves what they need to work at in their lives. So that's how you get smarter at sex, is being intentional about your sex life. Really, it's about being intentional and being, present to your sex life so you can work on it.
Right. And feeling good about yourself when you're going into the situation, so that you're not covered up or being awkward or weird. And that's going to cause all bad sex, right? Like
all bad
if you're
sex.
Not comfortable with how you look and how you feel and in your own skin, I bet that affects so many people out there, and they barely want to do it because they don't want to get naked. Right. That's a whole nother problem.
Exactly. That's a whole nother problem. And that's the self-acceptance pillar. Because really the work is, and in Smart Sex, I do give people a lot of tips on how to kind of work through our self-confidence. And I'm not even trying to get people to like body love. You don't have to love your body, but can you be neutral about your body? Can you not hate your body? Can you learn to figure out what actually does make you feel good? Because pleasure is our birthright. We all deserve to feel good. We can all have orgasms. We can all figure it out. And so, that's one of them. Another one is collaboration. Another pillar of smart sex is collaboration. And it's like, really, how do I talk to my partner about sex? Am I okay asking for what I want? Do I know what I want? That's self-knowledge. That's another pillar. Do I actually know what makes me feel good? If I look back, so a great place for couples to start is to just say, what are the 3 most memorable times we've had sex together? And like write it down and compare the list and think, well, what was happening in that moment? Like what made it so hot? Because then you can like kind of pull it apart, sort of your sexual DNA. What was happening in that moment? What felt good? Maybe you were on vacation. I know couples love vacation sex. Who doesn't love vacation sex? Maybe you guys need to take some more time away. Maybe it was, spontaneous. Maybe it really was like you didn't think the sex was going to happen and it did. Or maybe you had a few cocktails. I mean, there's a lot of things to understand about what makes great sex, and everyone gets to figure that out for themselves.
And you talk about, people figuring out their own pleasures, right? Is it okay? I'm sure you're going to say yes to this, but are you big on expressing to your partner the things you want or that you don't like the way they're doing it? Because I know that's always like a hard conversation, but there's a lot of people out there that feel like, oh, well, look at that. They're really enjoying it. I wish I was feeling what they're feeling. Like, how do you explain to your partner that, like, wow, you look like you're really having an amazing time, but like I could take it or leave it type of thing.
Oh my God. I know we don't, because we are just such a great fibber. Like we fake it really well. We do, because we don't want to talk about it. So one of the reasons we don't talk about sex is because we don't want to upset our partners. And so we're like, well, I'd rather just suffer. I can't tell you people would rather like suffer through a lifetime of bad sex because they don't want to upset their partners. It's like, well, how's that going for you? You're not enjoying it either. And if sex is to be this beautifully pleasurable thing, then we got to learn to talk about it. And so my main tips are the 3 T's to have any uncomfortable conversation about sex. And that is timing, tone, and turf. This is your ways to talk about sex, especially if you have never talked about it with your partner before, because you don't want to spring it on them in the bedroom. So one of them is turf. It's timing, tone, and turf. And the turf is outside the bedroom. Don't have conversations about what you want to improve about your sex life in the bedroom. When you leave the bedroom for sleeping and for sex, you're much better off, because when you have it, like, let's say this is like your partner rejects you again, or they do something that doesn't feel good. You're like, that's it. We need to talk about it right now. And it's like, they're already in an arousal state, perhaps. It's just not the best time. So
Awkward
right. And uncomfortable. So do it when you're like on a road trip or you're going for a walk, because then it's still, you don't have to make eye contact, which is the awkward part, but you can still talk about it in a way that's intimate because no one else is around you. And you can say, hey, let's, talk about our sex life and what feels good. But the first one is timing. So timing is, you don't want to be halt. Remember this. You don't want to be hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. If you're any of those things and you try to talk about your sex life, it's not going to go over well. So you want to be chill, date night, you're in a place, and then your tone is compassionate and curious, and it's light, and it's like, hey, I know we've been together for a long time, but I heard Sex with Emily on Melissa Gorga's podcast, and I always say blame me. Like, I always tell people, like, blame me because it's so awkward. They're like, I realize that we've never talked about our sex life, and I want to make sure that we are being great lovers to each other. And I thought we could practice talking about some things that we really like, maybe things we want to work on. Would you be open to it? And I want to warn people that their partner still might get defensive and say, what the hell are you talking about? Do you think I'm a terrible lover? You hate my penis. Like, this could happen, because we are so not used to it that we freak out and think that like they're insulting our penis. And it's like, no, I just actually want to have a conversation about something we
want you to use it differently. I just want you to use that penis differently. That's all I want.
Or not at all. I want more oral sex, right? Because men are obsessed with their penis and we are not. At least most women are less obsessed than men are about their, like, it's about their penis.
Like, they need to feel that proudness over it. They need to feel like it works well. They need to feel like it pleasures you. And I feel like, women, I think we still want to be proud about it, but we don't need like the whole, we don't need to be praised about it as much.
Exactly. It's not, we're not. And most women, I got to say that most women they don't orgasm through a penis. Most women orgasm through oral sex, fingers, a toy, mouth.
Yes. Why is that?
It's our anatomy. So it's actually the way we are born. It's if your clitoris is closer to your vaginal opening, you're more likely to orgasm during penetrative sex, because your clitoris is on the outside. Your clitoris is on the outside and the inside. So your clitoris is that little bulb above the vaginal opening. But there's also nerve endings. It's actually right behind me here. That's my clitoris. Pop it right there.
Is that okay. I see that little guy. Yes. Little girl, should I say.
Yeah. This is behind your opening. This is just the clitoris that you see, this little tip, right? It looks like a wishbone.
Yes.
These are legs that extend deep behind the vulva. Like, these are internal. These are all your clitoral nerve endings right here, right? So
I just want everyone to know I'm staring at a fake vagina, wishbone, and it's amazing. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm enjoying this.
So this is, and then this one. Hold on.
Wait, so some girls it's a little lower and some girls it's a little higher?
This goes behind it. So this, so this is the other vagina. So penis is going inside, right? If your clitoris right here is closer to the vaginal opening, the penis is literally going to pull this in more. It's going to pull it in, so there'll be more stimulation to it. And so you're having an internal orgasm that way. Internal, because it's like pulling it inside. But if your clitoris is further away, you're less likely to orgasm during penetration. That's the facts. So,
isn't there multiple ways for girls to have orgasms? Like they orgasm in different ways.
So many
also?
ways. Yes. So I've got to put them back because then we'll never find them. Okay. So we can orgasm in so many ways. We can have, so the clitoral orgasm is how most women orgasm that way, because it's the one that we have. Well, first off, the clitoris has 12,000 nerve endings. Okay. It only exists for pleasure. It's the only reason it exists on the planet. It's the only body part that only exists for pleasure. The circumcised penis has 4,000 nerve endings. Okay. So there's so many ways, and we have 3 times the amount of nerve endings in this small area. So we can orgasm in a lot of ways. The clitoris is the most common one. For example, a lot of women have orgasms when they're like, they don't even know this, when they're young and they're riding a bike, or they're humping their pillow, or they're doing something, right, on a horse, because they're rubbing the, right. So that's like the most common one, is the external clitoral orgasm. But then there's also internal nerves too. Some people call it the G spot, the G area. Some people call it the internal clitoral nerve endings. But what happens is once we get aroused and turned on, and the area becomes more, it swells, becomes more engorged with blood internally. And so then when we start to become aroused, maybe just by touching externally on the clitoris, then we start to feel more inside. And so we're more like, then we can have an orgasm internally too, sometimes with a penis or fingers, once our clitoris has been stimulated enough. So there's a lot of different kinds of, or you can have an internal orgasm. You can have a nipple-gasm. If you rub the nipples.
This I've never heard of.
Yes.
This has never happened to me before. This is new.
Well, here's the thing. What is so cool, and why I love we're talking about this, Melissa, is because we can have so many orgasms that we just don't ever try. We don't think to even like, well, I wonder if this could happen. But we are highly orgasmic beings. Our nipples and our clitoris both are attached to the same part of our brains. So the pleasure reward centers are same part of our brain measures those pleasures. So if we stimulate the nipples enough with their partner's fingers or using a vibrator, there's many women that found that when they do just focus on the nipples, they can have an orgasm. But we don't know it. No one tells us this.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is news to me. This is news to me. But you see, this is like, there's so many, this for women who think that men have this like inferior, like it's easier for, we have so many more things that can,
we have so many things.
We have all these things that help us. We just have to like utilize them all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We need to utilize them all. That's so it, but no one told us because everything that we saw growing up, I'm sure this was for you too, was all about penetration, was all about man, woman, make out, they fall into the bed, penis goes in vagina, explosive fireworks, they fall asleep, and that's what happens. That's sex.
Right.
But for many women, it's not about that at all. It's about exploring, and that's why we like foreplay and making out and kissing and going slow, and we need the warm up. Like women are slow cookers. Like men are frying pans. They get going. Women need to be warmed up. And then once you take the time to, literally we need to start the engine. Like it takes a while for it to go. So there's an orgasm gap because men can orgasm between like 6 and 10 minutes and women take with a partner between 20 and 40 minutes. So understanding how all the parts work are going to enhance and increase our chance of having more orgasms and pleasure. But since the world doesn't have this information, and literally why I love what I do, because it's like we still don't know this stuff. Like how? It's 2023 and like we don't know, right?
Apartments.com has helped millions of renters find their perfect places. And the beauty is they are all different. None of us are the same. So why should our homes be? Someone may want hardwood floors. Someone else may say carpet all the way. That's a questionable call, but hey, to each their own. Some may want a doorman. Others may say, I can open the door myself. But Apartments.com has all the right tools to help you find the perfect place that's uniquely perfect just for you. Sort through and filter listings by amenities and make sure you never miss out on their instant alert option. With more than 1 million available units for rent, you're sure to find the place that's right for you. So whether you're looking for a place with a basement, a yard, a pool, or everything in between, Apartments.com has got you covered. Visit Apartments.com, the place to find a place. On Display with Melissa Gorga is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be like overwhelming to say the least. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're just trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. So if you give their really cool comparison tool a try, you might just find getting the right rate and coverage you deserve is so easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. You'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare. So it's so simple to choose the rate and coverage that you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. What about the neck? What about the neck? Doesn't the neck turn a lot of people on?
There's so many nerve endings. The neck, kissing the neck.
The neck works for me.
Good. Does Joe know that?
He does. I feel like, and you know what else is big for me? Like, do people get like sense of smell? Like a smell is a huge part of like who you fall in love with too, right?
Yes.
And who you want to be like sexual with.
Absolutely. Our pheromones are such an important part of it. But I love that you said neck. So that's it. So like sometimes maybe when Joe's like, we're going home, you're like, kiss my neck. And I'll let you know if that's an option, right? Like we got to tell our partners what feels good, because the neck has a lot of erogenous zone. So that's like a secondary erogenous zone, the neck. Inner elbow too. Also an erogenous zone. Like putting fingers.
Wow. And men like nipples. Men like to be kissed on their
they do.
Right? Is that right?
Yeah. Men like the foreplay too. Like we go right for their penis because we're like, you're already ready to go. But I'm telling you, they like to have the inner thighs and playing with every area. Learn to get like a sensual massage and learn to like please each other in different ways, as it's also important. Like just learning how to touch and learning how to, turn each other on in different ways, because sex just gets boring after a while, right? Same move, same person. Like, I'm just assuming happens to everybody.
It's like when you get the same blowout. They have the same girl has the same technique. She blows it out. You know how it's going to end up. And it's like, I feel like couples fall into the same thing where it's like, okay, we know what we're going to do. We're going to kiss for 2 seconds. I'm going to lay down. You're going to like whatever it is that
exactly
couple.
It. You got to.
And I feel like everyone's going to listen to this and think I'm talking about Joe and I this whole time, but I'm not, guys. Okay. Yeah. I'm saying couples in general.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna, that's like, it falls into a routine. Like, oh, I kiss her, I roll her over, I bend her over, it happens. And that's right. It's
exactly.
Like, it's a routine, and that's boring.
It is boring. And I love that you're bringing that up, because literally maybe they'll think you're talking about, it doesn't matter, because the truth is it happens in every single relationship, and it's biology. It's physiology. So when something's the same, this is what the reason why the honeymoon phase, the NRE or new relationship energy, is so fantastic. It lasts anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. So you remember probably when you first started dating Joe, you were like, it's so hot and you're ripping each other's clothes off and you can't wait to have sex and you're having sex 5 times a day. And I don't know that you were, but many couples, super hot. We always remember that early stage. And then when that takes a dip, which it will, we think something's wrong. But that's not normal. That's because it's the spontaneity. It's the novelty. It's the newness. It's literally the dopamine and serotonin. You have the most delicious cocktail of feel-good hormones are being stimulated in a new part of a relationship. But like anything it's like a drug. It's literally like you are on drugs when you're falling in love.
Like you are high.
You are high. And when you get high, you come up, it has to come down, and it comes down. And then couples are like, now what do we do? How do I keep this hot? I'm with the same person, staring at the same ceiling in the same body, and we're kissing in the same way. And so, but then there's not like if your workout, it's like your workout, or your blowout or your workout. You do the same exercise at first. You start a new exercise routine, and your muscles get stronger, and you're like, you're losing weight or whatever your goal is, and then you plateau. That's what happens to your sex life if you don't mix it up. You will plateau no matter how hot it is, no matter how attracted you are, no matter how many orgasms you are, no matter how in love you are.
That's it, because your just same way your leg muscle's not going to move after you get it to a certain point.
Exactly.
Quad. This is going to happen over there. Wait, what is this term? Edging.
Edging.
Like yes. What's
edging
this?
is a great term. So I love edging. So edging means a few things. Edging is essentially the point of delaying orgasm. So it's the point of getting close to arousal and getting turned on and then going back down. So it's teasing. So edging is
like almost going there and then not letting it go, like switch and do something else.
Exactly. So maybe you like go up to, in the morning, you go up to Joe or whatever, and you like start making out with him and you touch him. And then you're like, just kidding. Got a phone call, going to work, or not just kidding. And then you get him aroused, but you leave, right? And then you come back late. Like there's all different stages of edging, but it's basically teasing, getting your partner going. Or it could be in the same bed. It doesn't mean that you have to leave the room, but there's also just
I don't know how easy that's going to be, but okay.
That won't be easy. No, that's extreme. But edging is like you are with your partner.
The build up.
It's the build up. That's
okay,
really
so that's okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you this: how many times a week do you recommend a married couple has sex? Like, what is healthy, or is it just different for us all?
Okay, it's different for us all, but I will tell you this because that is probably one of the top questions I get asked by couples because everyone wants to know if they're normal. Are we doing it okay? Are the neighbors having more sex than we are? I assume they are.
Right.
And so I don't like being prescriptive in this way. However, there have been, studies in this area that show that couples who have sex about 1 to 1.5 times a week. I don't know what the half time is. Maybe it's like a hand job or something, but 1.5 times a week, one time a week, 1.5 seems to work for a lot of couples. That if you do it once a week, you're going to be okay. Like it feels like that works. Once a month usually doesn't work. And so It's really the reason why I don't like to lob a number onto it is because couples get to decide for themselves. Like if you're both okay with once a month, like you're both genuinely okay, you both are like, we're good.
And not faking and lying, and you're both really into once a month,
then
it's okay.
Then it's fine. I mean, what do you hear from your friends?
I mean, what
do they say?
I feel
we won't mention names.
I hear,
yeah.
I mean, my husband seems to think like minimum is like 3 to 4 times a week. Of course, that's like he feels like how your roommates if you do anything less. And I think he's out of his mind. Of course we all do. We all think like, whoa, that's a lot, Joe, right? But like, let's say like he feels 3 times a week is suffice to like get through life, so to speak, without like. But I feel like a lot of couples I know do say once a week minimum. And if they can grab another day, great, or like some extracurricular activity. And that's pretty normal then.
I think so too. I think 1 to 3 times a week is pretty much what I hear. I'm always surprised when couples are like, I'm doing it all the time. But it's funny though, and I will say this, he won't kill me because Dr. Drew says it's on my show too. So I will say this, but he and Susan, they've been together. I think they did their like 40-year anniversary. Maybe it's 38. I don't know what, but they're like, Susan's always like, Emily, we're having more sex than ever. And they're having sex.
Oh my
they're so fun. I mean, they talk about that, but I'm saying like, that's rare. So I feel like,
well, you would think Dr. Drew is having a lot of sex, right? That's what you just want to imagine that anyway.
And so I mean, yeah, it's fun. But I'm just saying, like, couples get to decide. But yeah, if you can. And here's the other thing, though. I don't want sex. People think sex is just penetration, but sex can be mutual masturbation, making out, giving each other massages. One person gets off, the other person doesn't. We don't have to center sex just on penetration. So sex can be defined in a lot of different ways too. A lot of times couples are thinking they're craving, like when they say sex, it's not just penetration. It could just be intimacy and connection. And that's okay too.
What about the way men enjoy? So like they might not want to have sex throughout the week, right? But they enjoy watching porn. And I know I have friends that have been insulted because they'll say, he didn't just come find me, but I just found him in the living room with his hand down his pants and his iPhone. So like what's to think about that? Because I do think there's plenty of listeners out there right now that want to hear that answer.
It's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, Melissa, because it's really, really common that we don't really understand our partner's porn use a lot. Couples have this is the problem. Couples have an unspoken agreement that if a partner watches porn, it's somehow cheating or it's a message that we're sending our partner in some way we feel less than. But my take on it is masturbation is a really important part of sex, of being sexually healthy. And so people are going to masturbate in relationships, out of relationships, without their partner. And it's part of the relationship with ourself, which is a really important one. So sometimes we just want to, it's self-soothing. It can help reduce anxiety. Sometimes we just want to have an orgasm and watch porn for a minute without the complications of being with our partner. And so again, if we were comfortable talking more about sex, we wouldn't have all these issues around it. We wouldn't feel threatened by it. We wouldn't, this happened to me in my 20s. I found my boyfriend watching porn and I thought he wants to be with a blonde woman with large breasts. And I assumed that it meant that like, I am not that. I am petite and don't have large breasts. And I thought it meant felt he was cheating on me. Like, I didn't understand. So again, a lot of that comes from like, we just don't get it. We don't. So
women should accept that. Are you saying
yes.
If it's happening or if you've seen it happen, they should accept it and don't argue with your husbands over these things?
No, I don't think you should argue with them. However, listen, that's not a blanket statement. If they're not having, if you guys are never having sex and you're trying to have sex and they're rejecting you and then you find them watching porn all the time, that's a problem. But if your sex life is healthy and you're feeling good about it and they're watching porn, to me, that's a sign of actually a healthy relationship.
Okay. So as long as they're doing both and they're not just resorting to like porn only, not touching the wife,
exactly.
then that could be, and vice versa.
Vice versa.
I mean, this goes both ways, right?
Everything goes both ways. Everything goes both ways. I hear from just as many women than men who want sex more than their partners. I'm telling you, women want, like I hear from, they're like, my husband doesn't want sex anymore. I hear that all the time. And I used to think when I first started, there's so many myths. Melissa, like most of what we know about sex actually isn't true. It's been told. So I think that women want sex just as much as men. I want to normalize that. And sometimes men don't. So
right. And they're just they were allowed to or more comfortable speaking about it for so many years. But I feel like it's getting better, right? It's getting more equal. Listen, I have this book. So. I cannot wait to read this book. This is actually really educational. It is like you have a lot of expertise on this. I feel like you're so comfortable talking about the subject. I'm so glad that we got to chat. I mean, all you guys out there, you need to be sure to check out Emily's podcast because she talks about this kind of stuff all the time. And you have the website too. It's called Sex with Emily.
Yep.
And just make sure you guys all need to grab a copy of her new book. It's called Smart Sex. It's out right now.
Yes, everyone's out right now. Get wherever you get your books.
I personally have a copy. I am so excited. I'm going to read this whole book because this is all intriguing to me. I think it's interesting and it's fun. It's like a fun conversation. Yeah. And I feel like it shouldn't feel uncomfortable. It's like a fun, it's so relevant in the world and people get shy and weird to talk about it. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about it with me today.
Thank you for having me, Melissa. And I just want to say that I also have a bunch of stuff on my website, like that help, and then the book too, that it helps couples have the conversation. So like you can read it with your partner and it makes it less awkward. It makes it actually fun. There's like fun little exercises and stuff. Thank you for having me. This was really fun. I appreciate you.
Thank you. You were super fun. You need to come back with Joe. Like I'm going to need Joe on the podcast with you. So we're going to have to schedule that because Joe would have a field day with this and I would love to watch him, just almost battle you on some of your thoughts. We need to do that. So we're going to do this again with Joe the next time.
I'm so in, Melissa. Sure. Thank you for having me. Fun.
Okay, good. So nice to meet you.
You
we'll
too.
talk soon.
Okay.
Thank
have
you.
a great night.
All right. Bye.
Dive into true crime on Pluto TV. Unravel the mysteries with Forensic Files and 48 Hours. Investigate crimes with Dateline 24/7 and Unsolved Mysteries. With thousands of free crime movies and TV shows, Pluto TV is the true home of crime. Download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming true crime on live channels and on demand. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.